Hey, how's it going, guys? TND coming back at you. Today I wanted to show you guys my favorite Stasis Warlock build in Season 23. This build, which is already very strong, has only become even more powerful due to a couple of Stasis-focused artifact mods this season. This setup also features what I believe to be the best crowd control in the entire game as well, locking down entire lanes and spawn points for you and your teammates as needed. Now, the heart of this build is nothing particularly new if you're at all familiar with Stasis Warlocks in general. We'll be making use of the Osiomancy gloves to give us a second cold snap grenade charge. However, despite the fact the cold snaps are actually pretty solid, we'll mostly be using these as a means to get twice as many Bleak Watcher turrets out on the field. Bungie gave Bleak Watchers a bit of a shadow buff this season, making it so that when this aspect is equipped, our cold snaps also inherit the shorter cooldown from glacier grenades instead. These turrets can be tossed into spawn lanes or just right in the middle of the action to help both slow and freeze enemy targets. In this entire build, we will be focusing on getting as many of these guys out on the field as we possibly can. Now, there are two main artifact perks that are meant to help stasis loadouts this season that you'll want to make sure to have equipped to maximize their potency. The first being Pillars of Ice, which will spawn stasis crystals nearby anytime you defeat a frozen target. To go along with this, we have Hail of the Storm in the 5th column, which increases both enemy shatter damage and crystal shatter damage. This perk also makes it so that shattering stasis crystals releases 5 homing shards in a star pattern, with ice shards dealing even more additional damage and slowing targets nearby. These two artifact perks combined with our Bleak Watcher turrets make it so that it really does feel like we're slowing and freezing way more targets than we usually would. Back in the old days, before the Lightfall mod changes, we could conceivably get like 4 or 5 turrets out on the field at once. And while that's not really possible to do anymore, this build still has super strong consistency in your turret's abilities to slow and freeze entire groups of adds. The other aspect we'll be using with this build is going to be the Ice Flare bolts, so that along with those seeking ice shards, we'll also be getting additional tracking freezing seekers as well, making chain freezes a lot more consistent. We get 4 fragments to work with in this loadout. First up is Whisper of Chains, which gives us a 40% damage resistance when standing near a frozen enemy or stasis crystal. Two things that'll be happening a lot with this build. Bungie has stated that they are looking into adding more defensive capabilities with the stasis subclasses, but for now this is the best we have to work with. Next up is Whisper of Durance, which doubles the duration of our turret's slow effects as well as increases the length of time our turrets stay on the field from 25 to 30 seconds. Whisper of Shards gives us a 500% boost in our grenade regen whenever we shatter a stasis crystal. Pretty easy choice there. And finally we have Whisper of Fissures, which adds a second damage burst whenever we shatter a target or crystal. Before we get into our weapons, just a quick reminder that if you're enjoying this build and want to see more like it, to leave a like and sub down below. My current plan is to at least do one build video like this for every subclass in the entire game in Season 23. Now, the weapons for this build were kind of tricky for me to figure out. My first instinct was to roll with the Verglas Curve exotic bow, since it can generate a ton of stasis crystals and we have unstopped bow on the artifact this season, so it seemed like a solid choice. In practice, however, I don't know, the bow just felt like it didn't pack a certain punch that I wanted to see out of our exotic weapon with this loadout. But definitely give this a try first and then leave a comment down below letting me know how it went for you. The weapon I ended up going with was Ager's Scepter, one of the strongest kinetic slot exotics in the entire game. This trace rifle not only erases lower tiered enemies with ease, but also has subsistence built into it, as well as its exotic perk, which gives us an additional slowing burst on final blows that stack on top of all the other slows and freezes this build provides. Oh, and the catalyst also allows us to burn through our super to turn this thing into a big ol' anime beam for some solid damage on ultras and bosses as well. One thing it's not super great at is AoE destruction, so I went and paired this with my God Roll Forbearance with Ambitious Assassin and Chain Reaction. Now, in certain activities, running double special is going to give you a hard time, so be aware of that, but overall I haven't had too many sticky situations with ammo. Part of the reason for that is my heavy choice is crafted Recurrent Impact with Subsistence and Headstone, so we've got a third weapon now with even more ad clearing capabilities, more stasis crystal generation, and a really solid defensive origin trait in Land Tank as well. Onto the stats, nothing too surprising here. Resilience and Discipline are a must, with the rest of your stats going into Recovery. On screen you'll see my mod setup for this build. Definitely check the dim link down below. Once again, we're going all in on grenade regeneration with this build wherever we can manufacture it. Overall, this was a build that at first I was a little worried about, given the state of stasis in the game right now. But I think what I came away with here was an extremely strong loadout that will dominate crowd control and ad clear in some of the hardest activities in the game. Let me know what you think of this build in the comments down below, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Happy hunting, Guardians.